Hey y'all, this is Rose Luna, the CEO of the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault. Thank y'all for joining us for today's edition of TAASA Talks, the 87th. I'm joined today by TAASA Senior Policy Advisors, Kristen Lanau and Catherine Strandberg. Oh my God, y'all, so much has happened. So much has happened. Like, this is just kind of the train is on the track and it's going. I keep telling my team the force is with us. I really believe that. So, where to begin? I'm gonna go ahead and start with the budget. So, the budget, y'all know that we've been working on that, for months. So, if you want to know a little bit more about like the process and what happened, we kind of spelled all that out in our past TASA talks. They're only 12 minutes. If you want to go back, take a look at those. They're on TASA's YouTube channel. There's even like a section for TASA talks. But where we are today is that the Senate has passed their version of the budget, and that included the $4.7 million increase that we have been fighting for from day one. So that is super exciting. We had many champions, y'all, on the Senate side, most notably, guess who? Chairwoman, Senator Jane Nelson. Superwoman is what we call her here at the office. Also, the other superwoman is Senator Huffman and my Senator Charles Shortner. He was a part of that committee that kind of got it through the finish line. So very thankful to them and everyone on that finance committee. They were all wonderful and champions of our work and for survivors of sexual assault here in Texas. The other half of the equation is the House side. So that's the House appropriations process. So the House bill currently maintains level funding, which is great because I mentioned to y'all last time that the OAGLAR, those are spelled out in the other TASA talks. The OAGLAR had OVAG gutted. It had TASA's budget cut. There was also some changes to SAPCS. The good news is on the House side, they have everything back up to level funding, which is great news, no cuts. Now, we are very thankful to Chairwoman Mary Gonzalez because she has done a lot of work to kind of work on the sources of those funding streams to make sure that it is there and solid. And so what's going to happen next is it'll get voted out of the floor. Once it's voted off the House floor, then it'll go to conference committees. And at that point, we'll work with the members for them to adopt the Senate version. And we feel very good about that process. So we may be contacting you to help provide more education and insight about the work that we do, the survivors that we serve, and the demands that are out there so that we can get that through to the finish line. So very thankful to that. Now for the non-funding priorities, I just wanted to go through really quick before I hand this over for the exciting news that both Catherine and Kristen have to share, because I want this to be somewhat educational. So what happens is where we are when this process again started for the non-funding priorities is a bill is introduced. Next, it's then assigned to a committee, right, on both sides, Senate, House, wherever it starts. Then there's hearings, right? That's where we come in here, testify. Other folks come and testify. On the Senate side, after that, it is voted out straight to the floor. On the House side, there's an extra step. It goes to a calendar committee, and then it gets scheduled for the floor to get voted out. So that's kind of like a quick nutshell of the process. I just wanted to kind of give y'all that context before Kristen and Catherine kind of gave us the update so that you can see just the great, tremendous work that they're doing to get all of our priorities through this whole system, through this whole process. It's not easy. And we've had a pandemic to deal with in between. So anyway, there's that. And so with that being said, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to hand this over to Kristen and Catherine.
I think your bills are first step, so if you want to kick us off. Sorry.
Thanks, y'all. We want to kind of talk through where everything is in the process right now. So I believe the first bill on the agenda is that police custody, or is it privilege?
Oh gosh, it is police custody. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Yeah, so great news so we split our TASA priority around closing some loopholes in the penal code into two pieces. One is professional deception, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the other one is non-consent and police custody. So we clarified and strengthened language that a person cannot possibly consent to sexual contact if they're in the custody of a peace officer or in detention. And that bill has made it through both the House and the Senate and is currently waiting for the governor's signature. So we're really excited about that. It's our first bill to make it over the finish line and will hopefully be received by the governor. And then next up Yeah, so the other half of the strengthening our penal code priority is professional deception. We had some cases out of Harris County over the last couple of years of either licensed physicians using their position of authority for non-consensual sexual contact, or using their position of authority to touch patients in a way that is not medically indicated, that is in fact assault, and folks posing as physicians to gain that kind of contact. And we realized that in that latter example, those are only chargeable as fraud. They're not considered sexual assaults because of the way that the penal code is written. And in the first example, we've seen a lot of like Larry Nassar cases across the country where, because they were minors at the time, prosecutors were able to really go after Larry Nassar. But once you hit being an adult, right, you don't have the same level of protections in that kind of dynamic with a physician. So those are the two loopholes we closed. We had our first hearing on it yesterday in the Senate. It's being carried by Senator Eckhart. And yeah, we're really excited about it for a lot of reasons. We think it's a really good bill. It had a really strong hearing. But it's also our very last bill to get its first hearing, which means that generally speaking, we are over the first like real hump in our legislative process. We've gotten all of our priorities through at least their first hearing now, which is a really good sign for late April. We are pretty early still in this timeline to get everything heard and passed. Oh, it's still me. So this next priority is trauma-informed investigations. We've talked about it on TAASA Talks before. It's House Bill 1172 from Representative Howard. It does three things. I'll go over them really quickly. It strikes law enforcement's ability to polygraph survivors. It allows advocates to be present during a police interview if that's something that the survivor wants. And it also clarifies that law enforcement cannot decline to allow a survivor to have an exam if they arrive at the hospital or the standalone facility within the 120 hours that's written into statute. And this bill was unanimously passed by the House last week. We are over the moon about it, and it is now in the Senate awaiting a hearing in the Criminal Justice Committee. It's being carried in the Senate by Senator Zaffirini, who is just a huge ally on this issue. She's been really focusing on sexual harassment this session, and we've been supporting her in those efforts as well. So we're really excited to have her carry it in the Senate, and we hope that it'll get heard soon, and then we can check it off our list.
Okay, so our next one is our sexual assault response team bill, and this is being carried by Chairwoman Nelson, who, I think we talk about every week. And she's just been such a strong advocate for survivors and also for creating some minimum standards around how we respond to sexual assault in Texas. And that's really what this bill does, is it tells communities, counties, that they have to start developing protocols for when an adult survivor makes an outcry to them. And so we have these requirements in place for children, but we don't have anything in place for when an adult comes forward with a sexual assault outcry. And so this was also voted unanimously out of the Senate last week, and it is now in the House awaiting a committee assignment and a hearing over there. We really appreciate all the advocacy that's been done on this bill from our programs and from the Survivor Advisory Board. And then lastly, our final agenda item is around full confidentiality privilege protections for survivors when they visit a rape crisis center. And so what this looks like right now is that we have the majority of our centers are serving both domestic violence and sexual assault victims. And if you're a domestic violence victim, you have privilege when you visit that center to say that your information is not allowed to be disclosed, and the stories that you share are not available for anyone to repeat. But if you're a sexual assault survivor, you don't have that same level of privilege about your information. And so this bill will bring that standard into alignment with what exists for domestic violence. and it has been voted out of the Senate unanimously, and it is currently in the House Calendars Committee. So it really just has one more hurdle to go, and we'll hopefully see this pass. So one thing we wanted to do this morning was to just give a huge shout out to all the programs and the survivors for your calls, your emails, your testimony on sexual assault related priorities, both for TAASA and then ones that you find to be incredibly helpful and to push the needle forward in terms of how we respond to survivors. We couldn't do this work without you. It's a critical part of the advocacy that we do is for our policymakers to hear from the field, to hear from their constituents. And so thank you so much. And we also want to share just how grateful we are to the Survivor Advisory Board. Y'all have just been an incredible source of advocacy and information for policymakers, and the impact that you have when you testify, it just can't be understated or overstated. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we had the Survivor Advisory Board was really interested in a bill out of Representative Collier's office around intoxication and non-consent that's been heard already. And they came and they testified, and just the mood in the room immediately shifted when they started talking. It was unbelievably powerful to witness. And watching the survivor leadership from across the state come into the Capitol building and talk about their experiences and really move policy as a result of that, it's so survivor centered. It's incredibly cool. And we are so grateful to you. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank y'all so much. I have to say, y'all, doing this work, being an advocate in the field for so long, being at TAASA for so long, just the issue of sexual assault and society's just total misconception. Just when the headlines come out and the victim blame, all the vitriol that comes, it's just surface level understanding of sexual assault riddled in with just society, our inability or our unwillingness to just have that conversation, maybe because the word sex is there. I don't know. For whatever reason, that's how it is. But I think the lesson for all of us, especially leaders in the field, is when you put sexual assault survivors up front and center on something other than, can you tell your story to raise us money? Because I think that's just something that happens. But when you put them up front and center at the tables of change, of leadership, and give them some authority in that, this is what happens. As Catherine mentioned, you put them there with these lawmakers, and they're just their thoughts on this whole thing changed to where they're like, absolutely, we need to do that. I don't know if Catherine mentioned, we tried to do this last year, it didn't pass. We probably didn't have the survivors there last year leading the way. So I think that we should get out of our way, get out of their way, and start to lift them up to these positions, because they really are what's going to drive this change. I think we facilitate that, but they should lead that charge. And on that note, TAASA Survivor Advisory Board has offered generously offered to provide this insight to you all. All you have to do is contact them, contact us, and we'll get you in connection with them. If there's something that you're like, hey, does this make sense? Whether it's a policy, whether it's a practice, whether it's whatever it is that you're doing, they are willing to kind of share with you some insight again, so that you can also get that same response that they got from those lawmakers. Like, wow, what do you mean we haven't been doing this? Oh my God. So that's all we've been asking for years. And I think that we have figured out we need to get out of our own way and put the survivors up front and have them kind of lead this charge. So thank you so much to TAASA Survivor Advisory Board. Thank you to both Kristen and Catherine, Liz Boyce, and especially Amanda Lewis, that was the brainchild. She's the one that brought that to the table. And we were like, that's awesome, let's do it. And we're now seeing the benefits of that. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for watching. Again, if you have any questions, policy@taasa.org. We're here for you. We're almost there. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.